You're essentially trying to get someone to be not defensive and figure out what they value so that you can help them see that their values are operating in opposition to their behaviors. You're creating cognitive dissonance when they identify what they're right. If I believe in equality and I identify that through your questioning, then it feels really uncomfortable for me then to be against gay marriage. Is that mechanism correct?
Yes. The short answer is yes. The long answer is that's one of many things that takes place in the conversation, because it ends up being sort of a kitchen sink technique. There's exactly what you mentioned, helping a person understand their values and showing them how that's in opposition to their current position, which creates cognitive dissonance that they want to resolve. And there's also guiding the conversation afterwards so they don't resolve that dissonance by reinterpreting their own position as actually being fine, which is something we often easily do. There's the opening volley of the whole thing is establishing rapport. All of that is about trying to get out of that reactance frame, which is the bane of any therapeutic practice, where a person can come to therapy they want to change, and then because of the therapist's behavior, they will react to being told how they ought to behave, or that they're a bad person, or that they should be ashamed, or that here's what you should do. And all these things can create that strong reactance response where the person will, like a teenager would, or like anybody, if somebody's being like grabbed by guards and being, the unhand me you fools feeling of like, but especially like, your parents tell you how you ought to do, how ought to live your life, and your reaction is to do the opposite, even though that you kind of know that they're right. Reactance is a strong component of human behavior, and we very easily can trigger it unintentionally. And so they're very careful about like every step of the process. The other person knows is like, oh, you're being transparent, they're in control, they choose to go forward when they want to go forward, and I'm not telling you what to think, feel, or do. I'm holding space for you to explore why you feel the way you feel about the issue. So all that's important. They keep reactance off the board, and then they keep. They also, very importantly, one thing that in addition to the things we just mentioned, they get out of the binary win-lose frame. They get out of the I'm right, you're wrong frame. And they didn't do this. This was not intended. This was part of the accidental thing. Just to help the researchers, they introduced a scale. The scale was just a way to quantify the work, but it turned out to be an essential ingredient. And this is an essential ingredient of street epistemology as well. And motivational interviewing, where when you ask a person, say, for the sake of example, like did you if you go see like the latest Jordan Peele movie, Nope, like you're like, what did you think of it? And the person's like, I'd give it like a 7, 8 maybe. Like if you ask them what do you think of it, they say I loved it or I hated it or it was good or it was bad. But you say, well like on a scale of 0 to 10, where would you put it? And they're like, 7 or 8. And then your next question is, why that? Why did you give it that number? There's a moment where most people will say, that thing that we do is like, you can almost imagine in the control center, like it's like, oh, turn off these things, turn on these things. We're not talking that way. We're talking in a different way. We're thinking this. Like you leave the debate frame completely, and you enter into the metacognitive introspection stage where you're like, why do I feel this way? Like you have to employ all these like reflective tools that usually are on a simmer. It takes a lot of calories, a lot of cognitive load to do such a thing. So you stop, you reposition, and think, well, what I really liked was, and you start to explain it to yourself in a way that is more in line with that interactionist model. Like I'm trying to think of plausible justifications for why I hold the position that I just expressed. Plausible being that which I think the other person will find reasonable. And then if you are actively wanting the person to move up and down a scale of either certainty or attitude, you can ask questions that say, how come you didn't answer more in the more extreme direction? Like if you were talking about it in a way that you're like, it would be nice if they moved up to 10 on this. Like you could say, well, how come you didn't give it a 2? Well, now the person has to generate counter arguments to why they wouldn't be that low on the scale. And these counter arguments are being generated by their brain, not you. You're not copy and pasting anything to them. You're not asking them to take on your arguments on the issue. They're generating their own private counter arguments, and if there's a balance, it's overbalancing in a new direction that they've never considered. All this is fresh. In deep canvassing, they'll start by asking you, where are you on the scale? Why does that number feel right to you? And that's so a person starts producing reasons. And then once they've done that, they often will show an attack ad or something related to the topic. So the person might feel an emotional reaction that suggests that they could move a little bit. And if they do move, you ask, how come you moved? And this is an opportunity for a person to maybe express a motivation, a prejudice that wasn't salient to them at the time. And then they ask, was there a time in your life before you felt this way, before you had that number? And this is an opportunity for the person to discover maybe this is received wisdom. Maybe they have never actually come into contact with the issue in any way, and everything is vicarious. And then the part that you illustrated, they'll often ask a lot of questions that are trying to ask, what experiences do you have with it? Where if they have a strong emotional memory regarding the issue that seems to illustrate values that run counter to their current position, then they really will feel that cognitive dissonance, and they want to resolve it. And if you do it that late in the conversation after everything else, there's an opportunity that along with you, they can resolve it they can form an opinion on the matter that may be their first true opinion on the matter. And that's really the essence of deep canvassing. And on your side of it, you're just listening. It's very Rogerian. You're listening, you're reflecting, you're paraphrasing. Your job is to hold space for the other person to work something out that they may never have done before.